Good afternoon, Mr. Kramer. It's my pleasure. This is Jay Waters. I'm with the American Wartime Experience and the Voices of Freedom Project. Today is 11 June 2022. We are in Stevens City, Virginia. And as I said, it's my pleasure to do an interview this afternoon with Mr. Leonard Kramer. So good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And if you would, just for the record, if you could just tell us your full name again and where you were born.
My name is Leonard Kramer, with a K, and I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
And when were you born, sir? When?
In 1924.
1924.
July.
July. Yeah, we were talking before. A lot of people around here today.
Yeah.
July is the month. And thinking about your family, brothers, sisters, your dad or uncles, did any of your family members serve in the military?
My dad was drafted in World War I. My brother was in the World War II in the Air Force. And that's the only family members that I know that were in the service.
Well, that's interesting because so your dad was in World War I, and then you, of course, were in World War II.
Well, the funny thing about my dad, he was drafted. On one day, they had a party for him, and the next day, he still was a little bit drunk, and he was discharged.
Oh.
One day, and they called him a veteran.
There you go.
He was discharged because the war was over.
Oh, well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. If you would, think about December 7th, 1941, and the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Could you tell us where you were that day and kind of what happened that day for you?
Well, I was going to high school at that time, and I don't know what I was exactly doing, but I was home because I heard it on the radio. And that's all I remember about that day, because all I thought about then was the war.
Right. Yeah, and so I think it was a Sunday.
Yes.
So you probably wouldn't be in school
Yes.
on Sunday.
No.
And you were up in Brooklyn?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. I was in Inwood, Long Island.
Okay. Born in Brooklyn, but now...
Yes, because my mother had died when I was 3 years old. Was living with my grandmother.
Okay. Well, even thinking about what you said about the actual December 7th, but you were in high school. So the next day, December 8th, did you go to school, or what was going on in the town? Do you
went to
that?
school, and when school started, the principal asked all senior boys to report to the auditorium, and he begged us to stay in school till we graduated. And he made the remark that, I guarantee you the war will still be there and you'll be in it.
Okay.
And most of us did stay in school.
Well, so what did you do, Mr. Kramer?
I stayed in school and graduated.
Okay.
And then I went and got into this. Well, a couple of us went to go to the Marines, but the line for the Marines was about 5-6 blocks long, and the Navy only had 2 blocks. So we joined the Navy, and thank God it worked out.
Well, that's interesting. Did you join with a couple buddies from
Yes.
high school? Okay.
Yes, and we never met again.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, you kind of answered this, but why did you join?
As soon as I heard about the war, I wanted to go into service. I'm not bragging, but I'm a very patriotic man. I love my country. So I couldn't wait to go, but I did stay in school, and then I was happy I went.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that principal, I guess, had an effect on most of the
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy. That helped.
Well, maybe that was good advice.
Yes. Well, it worked out for me and my friends.
Yes. Well, then, so you joined the Navy because the the line was shorter. Where did they send you for your initial training?
I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, New York.
Okay. And what was that like? What was the training like?
It was interesting. I happened to be a guy who liked school, so going to another school was okay with me, and so I managed to get everything in the head, and it came out okay.
Okay. And then did you have any follow-on training, like specialized training or technical training?
Yes, I went to electrical school in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. And what was electrical school like up in Michigan?
Well, it was nice living there. I was married by then.
Okay.
And had an apartment in Geneva, New York, and went to the electrical school there. I had one child while we still lived there, and then I went to Great Lakes.
Okay. Well, maybe can you tell us a little bit about your wife, how you guys met, and
Well, I met her in high school.
yeah.
She was 13, I was 16, and she was the first girl I ever looked twice at. Girls didn't play baseball. They just didn't interest. I had friends who were,
Sure.
but with her, I saw her in the hall in high school, and I followed her down, just seeing more of her.
What's her
We married when she was 18 and I was 16. She was 18 and I'm sorry, she was 13 and I was 16.
Right.
And we waited and we got married when she was, and she was 18.
Okay. Well, what's her name?
And I was 21.
What's her name?
Terry.
Terry.
Therese Marie Smith.
Okay. No, that's cool. I since you mentioned her, I just was.
And she was a pretty girl.
I'm sure she was. No, that's good. Well, so then you finished up the electrical school. Was there any other training, or were you pretty much ready?
No, then I was assigned to a ship in Boston.
Boston. Okay. Well, one other question about training. When you went to either the initial training up at Great Lakes or the electrician's school, because you joined, were there drafted sailors in your classes too?
Yes.
Was there a difference? How did you feel, or how did the folks that had joined feel?
Well, most of the guys that joined made less noise about it. We wanted it, we did it, and we had no complaints about it. Some of the guys who were drafted said the bad words.
Yeah.
But that was their privilege. They didn't want to go to war.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wanted to go to war.
Right.
But most of us did it because it was the thing to do. And tell you the truth, I'm going to be 98 years old next month.
Next month, yeah.
And if a war started, I'd ask them to go in. And that's not just patriotic, it's the thing to do. When your country needs you, show up.
Yes, I agree, 100%. 100%. Well, so what kind of, you were in a ship in Boston, but then did you eventually go to the Pacific or the North Atlantic?
Well, yes, we did our training from Boston, and then we went through the Panama Canal and to California, and then to the Pacific, to Hawaii and Guam.
So this probably was,
and then we went to war.
Yeah, so this was probably what, late 42, 43?
Yeah, the dates go away from me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
It just the string just kept going,
Yeah.
and I guess we hit a lot of islands, ours and close to theirs. When our war started on the destroyer, and we had good officers, fortunately, and we lived on the ship.
Yeah.
And my bunk was the first bunk in the bow. There was nothing beyond me but the bow and one bathroom,
Yeah.
a little one.
Was that a good place to be on the ship or a bad
Well,
place?
I lay in my bed. I was on the third deck bunk, and I laid on my bed and looked at the bulkhead, and I could see it moving when the waves hit.
Yeah.
You know, rough water. And I just hope that the guy who welded it did a good job.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Right?
Yeah. But it was an interesting place to be. And when we got into rough water, I got a lot of bouncing and hanging on to the chain that held the bunk.
Oh, okay.
Tight.
Yeah, so I've never been on a Navy ship, but
But I didn't mind being up there. I liked it better than the rear of the ship.
sure. Well, and what kind of ship was it again? And
Destroyer.
and what was the name?
That's it right there.
Urban.
ERBEN.
Okay.
Yeah. DD 631.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at your hat.
Oh,
That's good,
yeah.
and that's good that you're wearing that.
And by the way, that's the real ship.
Yeah.
The
I can see where you were sleeping right up there
Yeah.
in front of it there. But you probably weren't getting too much sleep. You guys were pretty busy, right?
It was an interesting trip. The Pacific is a beautiful place. The sunshine, the sunset, sunrise. I like to be up to see both of them. It's a quiet place, and it was so clean. The only thing that made the air dirty were the ships.
Yeah.
But we had no bad weather. Well, that's not true. Several tornadoes.
Yeah. We Well, what? Eventually, you ran into some enemy forces, Japanese.
Yes.
So, could you describe?
Well, we had a fight with a couple of submarines. This is over time.
Sure.
I can't give you dates.
No, that's fine.
And aircraft carriers. That was our worst enemy, not the submarines, because they were a lot bigger. And believe it or not, we had a faster ship, but those aircraft carriers could move.
Mm-hmm.
And they came. And we spent a lot of time taking pilots out of the water. When we knocked them down, if they lived, we picked them up.
Oh, really? The Japanese pilots? Yeah.
Both of them.
Or American ones
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
Sure.
And one guy we picked up twice.
American guy?
In a different war, in a different battle. And when
American
we
guy
got
or
him
Japanese?
aboard, we,
American guy.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
He's probably one of the luckiest pilots in the...
Oh, he liked our ship, yeah, very much. But that was an interesting thing when that happened.
Wow.
But we did. I forget how many battle stars I had on my ribbon, but there had to be about 6 or 7 real battles.
Yeah.
Not just hitting airplanes,
Right.
but against other ships.
Oh, against Japanese ships?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, my place was above, about under the deck.
Below. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
below. So I didn't see a lot.
Yeah.
hurt a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we knew what was going on because word passed about. But when I was above deck several times, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Because you not only see the plane coming right at you, but you see the bullets coming at you.
Yeah.
Not to you, but at the ship.
Sure.
And it's frightening, but there's one thing you never want to forget. You got a job to do.
Right.
You can't get scared, you can't hide, you do your job. And you pray that you do your job well so you don't hurt anybody on the ship.
Right.
I never forgot that. For months after I was discharged, I remembered not being afraid. Not really, but in my mind I said, you're not afraid, do your job.
Right.
And the electricians, we had a job. There was always something to fix. And you better know how to do it.
Right.
And you better do it right. And soon.
Yes.
It was, that's all I can remember is don't get scared. I was scared.
Right.
But I didn't tell myself.
Well, and it sounds
And that's not a hero thing.
No, I understand.
That's a real thing. Because I don't care who you are, you got to be afraid when those planes are coming at you.
Yeah.
Not only when they were shooting, when they're coming. They get bigger and bigger as they get closer.
I can believe it.
And
well, you mentioned leadership of the ship, and that if each of the sailors and everyone's doing their job,
yeah,
you're relying on each other, and as long as everyone does their job, it
that's
works.
right. And we talked about that.
Yes.
We talked about it, and we saw somebody that wasn't doing their job. They did it after that. After you saw them.
Well, what did you do? What did you do? Talk to him, or or some other thing?
First, we talked to him. There didn't have to be a crowd, and then if he doesn't come around, we taught him a lesson.
Yeah.
Seriously, it wasn't for fun.
No, I know.
And everybody knew of it. But that was an important part of the teaching on the ship.
But it helps protect you and the ship.
Yeah.
Everyone doing their
Yeah.
job. Yeah. Well, how close did some of these Japanese airplanes get?
I was hit by one of the shrapnel.
Oh, really?
There was guys around me, and we were being bombarded, and all of a sudden he lost it, and he screamed and stood up, and we were all down, and so I jumped up and leaned into him to knock him down, and shrapnel hit the side of the bulkhead and bounced off and hit me above the eye. I was a hero. I was hurt. It wasn't a bad injury. It didn't go in my head.
Right.
That's why I'm still here. It didn't go inside.
Well,
It just glanced off.
Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hurt a little bit, but
And the guy that you were trying to help, he was okay too?
the guy I tried to help,
knock him down.
yeah,
He was okay.
he never let me forget that he owed me. I kept telling him, I didn't do anything but knock you down. I'm the one who got hurt.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it sounds bigger than it is, but you want information, so that was part of my experience.
Well, and I would imagine, you can tell me, but it probably happened very quickly and you didn't even think about it.
Oh, no.
It was just
No,
instant.
I just yelled at him, down! Because the bullets were coming over us,
Right.
and he stood up and could have gotten one.
Yeah.
But that was just an incident. We didn't have a lot of hits by people.
Well, I've read a little bit about like the Japanese, the kamikaze tactics. Did you ever have any experience with that? Or you
Yes, we've had kamikazes.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about that?
It seemed that we were guiding a aircraft carrier. Guys coming at the aircraft carrier came at us over them, and we were over here. And that was closer to the plane came to us, but he wasn't firing at the time. He had done his job on the carrier and quit and was flying away, so we didn't get hit by him. We got hit by several Japanese planes, not seriously.
Right.
We came not close to sinking or any such thing as that.
Did your ship? Did you guys ever participate in any like land-based operations where
we bombed a couple of islands.
Okay.
And we hit a lot. We did a lot of shooting at the islands because you always don't have a plane or a ship near you.
Right.
But you pass a lot of islands. Some of them we didn't even have names. There was little, but we bombed them anyway because there were Japs firing at it.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I think we hit a couple of islands.
Sure.
And we knocked down a couple of planes.
Yeah. No, good.
We didn't win the war, but we tried.
It's a team effort, right?
Yes.
Did you ever see a Japanese soldier, a real Japanese soldier or air?
Well, we've seen a couple in the water. When we tried to pick them up, but they wouldn't. They'd rather drown.
Really?
They probably thought we were going to kill them. I don't know what they thought, but they wouldn't. They didn't swim toward us. They swam away from it.
Wow.
We saved some of our own people.
Yeah. That's interesting. That
Yeah.
the Japanese, because I know like the army guys would rather commit suicide, but
Probably.
yeah. Wow. That's
they were
pretty fanatical.
to us. They were incidents. They weren't war stories.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are things that happened with a guy swimming in the water, and we're going to pick him up.
Yeah.
Some of them we had to beg them to keep coming because they're swimming toward us. But some of them must get tired. They could have been wounded. I don't know, unless they come aboard.
Stuff on, you're wet. You're scared.
Yeah. And they must have been scared.
Well, what was when you weren't working too hard or in direct action? What was life on the ship? I mean, the food or
the food was satisfactory, and I never heard anybody complaining except they didn't get enough of the dessert. or we all wanted ice cream. And we didn't get ice cream. But no, the food was good. It was well cooked, and nobody complained about the food.
Okay.
The coffee was very good.
Coffee was good.
Yeah.
Did you get some free time on
Oh yeah. I played ball on one of the islands. We got liberty.
Okay.
And we enjoyed that, but most of the time we either played ball or drank beer.
And that's okay.
Of course, we couldn't have it aboard ship, so.
Okay, so no.
So we went on the islands to get a drink.
But so on the island, was it just like, hey, the ship was going by someplace and would stop, and you guys?
Yeah.
With no Japanese.
In between.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we were. Planes came across that island that we were on, and bombarded.
Oh, okay.
But that wasn't just because we were there. It was an island they wanted to get, like the bigger ones, like Guam I can't remember.
Yeah, no, I understand.
You have to forgive that. I'm 98 years old.
Yeah.
I don't have the memory I used to have.
Did you ever get like a really big liberty or leave? Like you were able
Oh
to
yeah,
to the
yeah.
games?
Yes. When we played baseball on one of the islands, and there were professional ball players there.
Okay.
They were entertaining the troops, and I might as well say this: that several major league ball players,
Yeah.
and I played against them.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Were you a pretty good baseball player yourself?
I think I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tried out for the Yankees.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
Which was a big mistake. I weighed about 120 pounds and was 5'6", and I'm on the Yankees. But I was there,
Yeah.
and I can brag that I tried out for them.
Exactly.
But once I got on the island, what happened was we played ball on the island, the sailors, and I happened to play a good game. And we didn't know it, but there was a scout in the stands. And he came to me after the game and asked me, would I like to try out for the Yankees?
Wow.
But it was one of those things that happened to me in my life that happened I had nothing to do with, because I was just playing ball. But I stole home. He liked that. I got 3 hits. I sound like I'm bragging. I'm not bragging.
No.
I was a little kid, but I played ball well.
Well, you were in
So
the right place.
I caught his
Yeah.
eye, and I guess he liked the idea that I was little. They don't have little. Well, they have Pee Wee Wees. They had Phil Rosula. They're not big men, but they're all bombers hitting.
Yeah.
I hit singles, but it was a game that I played well on,
Okay.
and I'll tell you how surprised I was. I was on third base, and I called time and asked the coach, third base coach, was that a steal signal? I couldn't believe it. Steal home?
Oh, they wanted, yeah.
I made it. That was. See, these are luck.
Yeah.
There's no skill to stealing a base. You're lucky you made it. But that's how I got to go to Florida and try out.
So was the trip to Florida during the war or after the?
Or after the war.
After, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what did they have you do for the tryout?
Oh, they put me in a game.
Yeah.
Well, we did all of the interesting things of how to hit and how to run and how to do that stuff, and then we played a game, and a regular game against another team, but not another major league team.
Right.
Everybody played ball on the islands.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good story. Well, I want to go back for a second about Japanese submarines. Was that a big concern for you guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we've run from some. We never had a torpedo come at us though. We were faster than they were, so they didn't catch up close enough. But we knew it was submarines following us.
Sure. Okay. But you said your ship was pretty fast. Your ship was faster usually?
Oh yeah.
Could get
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But we did drop depth bombs.
Okay.
I suppose we hit some. I was below deck. I didn't see it. I hear it.
Well, did you ever get extra duties like to be up on watch or submarine lookout or?
Oh yeah, yeah. There were some times when
you had to do that too.
I had to fill in somewhere.
Okay.
Near the guns.
Okay.
The 5-inch guns.
Well, other than the one time that you had the shrapnel hit you in the head, were you injured or wounded
No.
any other times?
No.
Any close buddies or sailors that injured or?
A couple of injured. None of them seriously.
Okay.
We had no deaths. We got some hurt, but not going to die.
And for somebody who's maybe not familiar with like what an electrician's mate did, what did you do on the ship day to day?
Well, first of all, we made sure that all the lights stayed lit. Sometimes one of the instruments would go out.
Okay.
Things like that. There was one, I can't remember. Anyway, we just kept things running, no matter what it was. We never worked on the engines or anything like that, but we kept all the other instruments on board working.
Okay. And
Mostly that's what it was. It was routine work, making sure that the lights lit and the switches worked and things like that.
And did you get promoted during your time in the Navy?
Well, I was a seaman, and then I got promoted after time.
Right.
And I went from nobody to a first class.
Okay. And do you have any?
And I was proud of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you got promoted more than a few
Yeah.
times, like several times.
Yeah. And I wasn't an electrician before I went to school.
Okay.
So they did a good job on that.
Either the training was really good or you're pretty
Yeah.
smart.
The funny thing is I had two uncles who were electricians,
Okay.
not in the Navy.
No? Do you have any recollection of how much they were paying you back then?
Not a bit.
Not much.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And you had your wife, your family back in the New York area. How were you able to stay in touch with them while you were out at sea?
Only from boot camp. Once I got overseas, when I came back, the war was over.
Okay.
We stayed out there.
So no.
We never came back to the States until the war was over.
So not even letters were catching up to you guys. And
Oh yeah, we got mail.
Oh, you got some mail. Okay.
We got mail. Oh, we screamed for mail.
And then you were able.
We yelled at every ship that went by. Hey, you got any mail?
Oh, okay, because the mail would be tied to your ship. Hey, you got any ship mail for the Urban or for this
Yes.
ship or that? Okay.
Yes.
And then-
Yes.
okay, and you were able to write letters
Yeah.
back. Okay.
And got letters. That was the most fun, I think. Getting mail.
Well, I can believe it. Yeah. But now, was it just letters, or were you able to packages, or just letters?
I never got a package. Some of the guys did.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
But when we got mail, we got a lot.
Yeah. I know.
They knew where we were going to be. We didn't. So they got the mail out to the islands. And I don't mean you got big mail at any one island, but you could get 5, 6 that caught up the. But it was just the idea of getting the mail. It was that was more fun than reading them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, other than the incidents we already talked about, are there any other specific incidents that stand out in your mind? Either something very scary, or maybe even on the other side, something very kind of funny or unusual that happened during your Navy time?
There was a couple of things. I'm sorry, but my memory is not what it used to be.
Oh, you're doing great. You're doing great, Mr. Kramer.
I used to have a brain that never forgot anything. Now I have a brain that isn't there anymore. No, that's not that bad.
No, you're
But
doing
the memory is like I guess I could remember what I had for breakfast, but I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, but that probably wasn't that important.
Yeah.
So.
And it had nothing to do with the war.
Okay.
I was not injured except for that one little thing.
Here's kind of a weird question, though, but like when you were, especially on the islands or even on the ship, did you ever have anything with like exotic animals or fish or
No,
sharks?
flying fish.
Flying? Okay.
One of the men all of a sudden yelled, I'm hit, and was screaming. So we got him off the deck, down deck, so to look him over, and it was a flying fish. It hit him, and then we saw it was fish stuff, so they went back up and found the fish laying on the deck. So the guy never could forget it. We never forget it that he was killed by a fish, but he wasn't. But you can't blame. It's dark.
Yeah, it's dark.
There's no light.
Yeah.
And when he felt the pain, I mean the hit, when he put his hand on it, it was like blood. He thought he was bleeding.
Yeah, the slime and the
Yeah, it was pitch dark.
Wow.
And we kidded her, but not until later.
Yeah. Well.
But that's the only thing that happened even close.
Okay. Do you remember receiving any special awards or citations? You mentioned some battle stars.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were on the ribbons.
Ribbons, yeah.
I got no awards. I think I should. No. Nobody on our ship got any kind of big thing like that. But they did give us those stars, which showed that we were in battle.
Yes.
And I wore them proudly.
Well, what do you recall, or did you find out about when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Were you near there, or what was going on for you then?
The first one, we were on our way home.
Okay.
We would. We weren't close to the States, but we were on our way. The war was gone for us. And then, of course, the war was gone after the second bomb.
Right.
And then I got married.
But you'd been, you were on your way back in 1945. You had joined in 42, so you'd been going at it for 3 years between training and... So that was a long time.
Oh, well, yeah, we were in the Pacific about almost 3 years.
Yeah. That's a long time.
And we traveled a lot. We had a lot of islands we went to. Some of them the name islands, others are just islands. We didn't get liberty on every one of them.
Right.
But we saw a lot of the Pacific.
Well, what was it like? Were you still on the ship? I guess August of 1945 when Japan surrendered. Was there an announcement, or were people celebrating, or what was that like?
It was an announcement on the ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were almost home though. We knew we were finished.
Yeah.
We weren't going to go back. We knew that. It was a long trip home.
Yeah.
But
still must have been a good feeling.
Oh yeah. I didn't want. I was on my. I didn't tell that story. I was on my way home on another ship.
Okay.
They transferred me to a cruiser, and I begged the captain not to do that to me. We were getting ready to invade Japan. I didn't want to go home. I wanted to go do my duty.
Yeah, so your ship, Urban, was going to go on the invasion of Japan.
Yes.
But they took some of the crew off.
Yes.
And put maybe new guys.
Okay. I went up and talked to the captain. For the first time in years, I talked to the captain and begged him to let me stay. That's not a hero story. I don't mean it to sound that way. It's just, I'd gone this far. I want to be in at the end.
Finish it. Finish the job.
But they, of course, they never did invade Japan. So.
Well, thank goodness, all right. I mean, that would have been.
Who's killing? Who's killing?
They're just
Japanese.
Yeah.
It was a nice ride home.
Well, so what was your actual homecoming? Whether when you got back to New York or anywhere else for that matter?
Well, when I got to California, I contacted home and let them know I'm coming. I contacted my engaged lady and said I was coming home. But I had already made up my mind that we weren't going to get married because I've been away a long time. When I left, I told her, "You're only 13 years old, 14 years old. You go out with the girls or guys, date if you have, if you can. Don't wait for me. I don't know how long I'll be or whether I'll come back.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to you." I said, "Then one thing I'll ask you to do, when you go out on a date with a guy, leave your ring at home. I don't want my ring with another guy around."
Yeah.
The girls later, when I was home, told me she never took the ring off. So I told her I was going to divorce her, disobey her. No. But that's a true story. I wanted to do something to let her know, you're free. We're engaged, but we're both little kids in a sense. But she never did.
Yeah. Well,
that's another story.
Yeah. Well, so then I always remember hearing of like parades in New York. Did you participate in any of that?
No.
No.
No. My brother did, but I did. But my brother lived in New York, in the city.
Okay.
No, there was nothing like that. I had parties at home and friendly things.
This must have been a relief to be back.
When I told her that we're not going to get married, I told her why.
Yeah.
I can come home and get married to a woman that's been away from me for four years.
Yeah. No, I understand.
But
well, what did you do after the war?
Well, let me just tell you that when I realized my father told me to go back down there and you tell her you change your mind. You're going to get married. You love her. She has said she loves you. Never mind what happened in between. Just get married. So I went back down to her house and talked to her and told her that that was a big mistake. I still love you. You love me. We should get married. So she took me into it was in the evening, took me into her mother's bedroom and I said to her, we're going to get married. And she said, well, it's about time. And she grabbed me and pulled me in bed. And I said, I'm not marrying you. She loved me. I just told you that was a great homecoming thing.
But you got married?
Yes.
Yes.
We got married. And
how long were you guys married?
70 years.
Yeah.
70 beautiful years.
Well, so your dad gave you
8 kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. So,
but she had every one of them. I had no kids. She had them. Oh, I had something to do with them, though, didn't I? Yeah.
But your father gave you some good advice.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he threatened me, and he never hit me. But
well, that's a great story. Well,
but he said, "You go back down there and you tell Terry how much you love her, and you made a mistake, and you're going to rectify it by getting married." And I went down there and said those words.
Good for you.
It changed.
I was worried that you didn't get married to her. That's why I wanted to change the subject. I apologize.
I know you did. That's all right.
We
won't go into the marriage because it's a love story.
Of course. Well, what kind of profession did you have then after your Navy time?
Well, the first job I had when I came back, what did I do? Oh, I drove a delivery truck for my father. He owned some meat delivery, home delivery. My uncle owned a butcher's, several of them. And my dad owned the trucks. So I worked for him for a while. And then I went to school college. I got liberal arts, and I got a job at the Equitable Life Insurance in New York City. Stayed there for a while and changed jobs. Started in Iowa. Lived in six states after that. I raised money for private colleges.
Okay.
And all the states have conventions and organizations, and I worked for those organizations. And when I moved to those states, it was for more money. I got to at the conventions of the several states, you get to talk to a lot of presidents.
Sure.
And I talked to them. Some of them liked me, I guess, and asked me if I wanted to come work for them. And each time I made more money.
Yeah. Well,
the kids didn't like it.
Yeah, well. How'd
Leave.
you end up in Virginia?
Pardon?
How'd you end up in northern and western, in this part of Virginia?
Well, my first, I lived in, I'm trying to think, what the hell? My first state was Iowa, and I lived in Des Moines. I lived in Kansas at Atchison.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Baltimore, in Maryland, and I lived in, where the hell? I live in Virginia, where I stayed until recently.
You told me you live in Virginia. I just was wondering how you.
I came to Virginia for a reason. Oh, two of my kids lived in Virginia.
There you go. Okay.
And so I wanted to be near them, being away, no fun.
Well, that's good.
And I stayed in Virginia.
And I got to meet you here today.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple more questions. I was curious about any of your, the guys that you served with in the Navy. Did you stay in touch with them?
Only for a little while.
Yeah. Reunions?
And then they just
reunions?
disappeared.
Yeah,
No.
Didn't do that, yeah. Okay.
And it's funny, there was not another New Yorker on the ship.
Oh, really?
So I never could be friends with a New Yorker.
Yeah. Well, how do you think your World War II service changed you personally and your outlook on life?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, in a modest way, I'm very proud. I'm proud that I was able to do a good job. I have no complaints about the Navy, how they treated me or anything like that. Never had a bad word with an officer. Never had a fight with another sailor. I just got along doing the job. And right now I wear this with pride.
Yes.
When I realize that nobody thinks I'm showing off. They know a veteran is a veteran for real. Yes, every sailor, every service person that played in the war is a hero in my eyes. Not me, but everybody.
Yep, I agree.
Because when you think about it, they laid their lives on the line. If they were in battle, they were subject to death, and they did it. And most of them came home very happy. But they're proud. And they should be.
Yes.
And so should you.
Well, I'm proud of getting to meet people like you, and I'm proud of what I did, but I always look to the previous generations, in particular the World War II veterans like yourself. So thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. It's and that's another thing. All the service people try to say thanks for your service to service people. it's a thing. They did what you did.
Yes.
And you don't know whether a veteran was in the war or fighting, but he served.
Yes.
And to me, that's what it's all about.
No, I agree. Well,
my brother was in the Air Force.
Okay. Yep.
And I met him. I met him in the Philippines.
Oh, during the war.
Yeah.
Now, well, tell us about that. You didn't mention. I know you mentioned earlier about your dad, World War I, but then your brother in the Air Force. But what was that like, running into your brother in the Philippines?
Well, it was a crazy surprise. Oh, I saw that a sign with his what do they call Air Force guys?
Oh,
their
call signs.
Yeah,
for their handles.
And then I went and looked for him and asked for him, and he was there.
Yeah.
And that's a different story that you want, but we went with a couple of other guys to a USO thing, and Frank Sinatra was the big deal.
Yeah.
And when he finished, we're standing up applauding as he walked off the stage, and he had to go by our table. And my dopey brother jumped up when he passed us and said, "My brother sings better than you." I was a singer. And I said, "Bobby, don't do that." Frank answered him. He said, "I hope he keeps it up." That's what he said.
Well, that's good. Well, and obviously the New Jersey, New York connection, Frank.
Yeah.
Brooklyn and Jersey City and Hoboken, and so Mr. Kramer, the second to last question, and you mentioned your kids, maybe grandkids, grandchildren. Looking ahead, all these future generations. What's the one thing that you would want your great grandkids or great grandkids to know about you and your war-term service?
That I did it, and did it with honorably, and came home unscathed. That's the whole thing, really, coming home.
Yes.
They're always asking me for stories, and I got a granddaughter, who's begging me to do my autobiography, but I won't do it. I won't do it for a very personal reason. My story would sound like lies if I told you the full story of the people I met and the things that nothing that I did myself, I just ran into. It just happened.
Right.
But there's movie stars, athletic people, a lot of them. And I did sing with the Navy Orchestra and was told that I was good. There's one thing that I hated when people said this to me. You're a good singer. You sound like Frank Sinatra. I said, I'm Leonard Kramer. I'm not Frank Sinatra. It's not my fault he copied me.
Exactly.
That's just what I say to him.
But he gave you some good advice in the Philippines, sounds like.
But that's a whole new story that I planned ever since I started with people telling me I'm a good singer. I started to practice my autograph in high school. I was so sure. And it went pretty far. But I want you to hear this. It's not for the story. It had nothing to do with your story. I had some recordings. Somebody, where was I living? Wherever I was living. Someone got into my cellar, and they took a barrel that was in there, and it contained my uniforms and my records. I don't have my records. I wanted them to prove that I'm saying the true story. Because, am I keeping you from something?
This is great. No.
I'm not a drinker. I drink beer and all, but I'm not a. I went out with some guys in Detroit when I was going to school. And at a bar, it was 4 of us. And I had some real whiskey, not beer. And all of a sudden, I'm alone. The guys left me. Oh, I remember leaving the bar by myself. But when I woke up, my torso was in the gutter and my feet were on a sidewalk. And there were 3 Marines kneeling with where I was, looking for identification so they could take me where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
They found some, and I woke up in the morning in my bunk, and I was told the skipper wanted to see me. And I thought, boy, am I in trouble. Drunk in public. When I got to his office, he just turned me around and said, we're going someplace in my car. Now where am I? I'm going to jail? What? Took me to a building. We went up the elevator and down the hall, and the door we stopped at said, eye, ear, nose, and throat specialist, doctor. Because I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak at all. No sound would come out. The doctor, to make it short, said that I'm lucky that they don't break. He said, they're so tight, it'll be maybe a week or more before you can talk. But what happened was I couldn't sing anymore. It doesn't come out the same. I could talk, but it doesn't sound the same. So I never again sang in public.
Huh.
When I was getting ready for contracts, I was good. Don't put anything there.
Yeah, no. So what happened to your vocal cords?
They came back. I'm talking.
But I mean, the week or the days that you couldn't talk even.
Oh, I just couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I made motion, wrote.
Huh. I believe you, of course, but that's very unusual.
I never heard of such a thing.
Never, yeah.
But he says I must have been screaming and yelling at the top of my lungs constantly.
Yeah.
He says, I'm surprised nobody stopped and helped you,
Yeah.
except that when it was a little late. Why I was singing, I might have been trying to sing when I was yelling, but and I still can't. I don't sing I sing alone. I'll tell you a secret.
Sure.
I sing when I'm alone in the.
Okay.
And I like it. But it's not what I...
No, that's... but as far as and I understand what you said about the autobiography, but we're going to give you a copy of this interview, and maybe that's something you can share with your grandkids or folks that want to hear some of your story, because this is Mr. Kramer, this is a fascinating history. You said you didn't do anything, but you did a lot of stuff. There's a lot of interesting material here, and I'm sure you're...
Well, I was thinking I'm not a war hero. I don't have medals.
But you're their hero, so they would love to. Your loved ones would love to hear some of these stories. So you'll get a copy, then you can choose what you do with it. Well, the last question is proverbially the last question. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us this afternoon?
No, not really.
Well, this has been. I'll stop this in a second, but I'd just like to say thank you on